Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, this is an absolutely startling piece of news. No, it's not. Police Scotland have admitted that they are a bit ist and a bit phobe. They have a problem, or some of their officers have had a problem with, the colour that some people present as. And this has caused them issues in the past. I think it's amazing that they've come out and said it, but we've all known this for such a long time. And of course, not just Police Scotland, it's just about every police force in Britain. But, they've got this case, this ongoing case. They've been forced to do an inquiry, and then they've had to eat crow at the end of it and admit, like I say, what we all know. And this is coming from, of course, Iain Livingston, who is a man about to resign or retire, shall we say. He's already put his papers in. He's just sort of waiting out his last few days. A man who, strangely, seems to be unable to do his actual job of policing, because otherwise he wouldn't have had the mess involved with not arresting, Sturgeon, Murrell and Beattie all at the same time and having them questioned in different rooms at the same time. So there's very big questions over him. But I don't think he personally is an ist or a phobe or anything like that. I just think he is inept, or he could be, possibly, allegedly, and in my opinion, corrupt. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, we'll have a look at this piece, see what's going on and see why they've, what they've admitted to and why they've ultimately admitted to it. Here we go. I mean, to be fair, I'm surprised they've actually come out and admitted it, because I think they could have just said, we'll just treat it as read that everybody knows. But they have come out and said it. So anyway, Police Scotland is institutionally racist, admits the Chief Constable. It's also pro-SNPist and anti-arresting short Scottish political peopleist, I believe. Police Scotland is institutionally ist and phobic and all sorts of horrible things, a report has found. As the Chief Constable, Iain Livingston, made a personal commitment to the family of Sheku Bayoh. Although, to be fair, he's going to be gone soon, so it doesn't matter what he says. Livingston is making sure he's timing his escape, shall we say, to coincide with peak pension. At a meeting of the Scottish Police Authority Board, the outgoing Chief Constable presented the findings of a report into discrimination within the force. This is a report that was overdue 20 years ago. Mr Livingston, while stating the relentless and intense nature of policing should always be borne in mind when assessing police action, and of praising the great strength that anyone can be a police officer in Scotland, admitted that Police Scotland was institutionally racist. Well, okay, I'm going to tell you now. If we had a proper police force filled with honest, decent, hard-working people that you could rely on, people who, when you were in trouble, they would help you, the sort of things that ideally a police force should be, then everyone would be completely sympathetic to the nature of the job. We know it is incredibly hard. We know it runs great personal, emotional risks. We know these things. But when you have the police, these individuals in blue, doing the most terrible things, and just look at the number of videos I've done about the police, it's very hard to draw up anything positive about them. And for them to come out and admit what we have all known for, forever, is at least a step in the right direction. I mean, to the first step to recovery is to admit you have a problem. This is only the first of many, many problems, but at least it's one problem, and they are admitting it, and hopefully will change their tune going forward. Mr Livingston said, Police Scotland has grown into an organisation known to be compassionate, values-based and highly competent. Well, possibly in his mind, but reality says it is something completely different. He said it is well regarded nationally, extremely well regarded internationally, but I know it can improve. It must improve. I don't believe it is regarded well nationally, simply because it's failed to do its job properly over this investigation. It should have had all three of those signatories arrested at the same time, and yet strangely didn't. It should have arrested them and did the search immediately, and strangely didn't. There's all sorts of questions. And that's just one case. You only have to look at all the other cases and you find that there's an awful lot of things which would stop it being well regarded at all. Institutional isms and institutional discriminations have become iconic terms in the vital battle to tackle injustice. Police officers and staff, including police leaders, can be conflicted both in acknowledging their existence and in using such terms, fearing it would be unfairly condemning dedicated and honourable colleagues, or that it means no progress has been made since the 1990s. Just stop with the weasel words. It shouldn't matter the colour of an offender. It does, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't matter that certain crimes seem to be more in one group than another. I mean, it does matter, but it shouldn't. The law should be equal under all, but it isn't. And certain people, particularly very, very senior people, tend to get an easier time of it. And that is the main problem we have. And so, yeah, I don't think that they are terribly ist. I think they're more classist than anything else. That's the big thing with the police. I do think they just tend to hate everybody. But there's undoubtedly isms of all sorts in there. Because they're human beings. And human beings are full of isms and ists and phobias and all sorts of bloody things. It's just inherent as part of the human condition. But I understand why it should be institutionally not. Anyway, he said, truly I recognise and understand the conflict. He says, I've experienced that conflict myself over a number of years. The meaning of institutional racism was set out by William Macpherson in 1999 in his report on the appalling ending of life of Stephen Lawrence in 1993. Good Lord, is that 30 years ago? And it is rightly very demanding. And it is. Of course it is. Because, how can we put this? When a crime is committed and the police are informed of what the perpetrator looks like, they're supposed to be blind and go, oh, well, the perpetrator was black, but they're supposed to not just target black people. Or the perpetrator was Indian. They're not supposed to target Indian people. If they say the perpetrator was white, then they can target white people. So there is racism both ways here. It's a very, very funny thing. But it's wrong. I absolutely cannot abide it. It makes me sick to my stomach to see it. Sure, people can be assholes, people can be idiots, people can be all sorts of things, and it is right that you call these people out for what they are. But you can't be, you can't be calling people out or grouping them as a group simply because of the colour of their skin. You can with culture. I do truly believe you can with culture, because some cultures treat things differently. But to assume simply because of somebody's skin colour, that is disgusting. It's wrong. And yet the police have always, and I mean always, done it. Anyway, he says the phrase, the terminology, however, can be and often is misinterpreted or misrepresented as unfair, and personal critical assessments of police officers and staff as much as individuals, and this is not the case. And it's just him going on about this. But I think he is right. I do think that it is institutional, but not just in Police Scotland. I think in all forces. But I think the one problem with Police Scotland is that it is one force. There used to be, I think it was 8 different police forces, and so you'd have 8 different chief constables, each more, responsible for their men. But I think by having more forces, it puts the senior staff closer to the men, closer to the more junior staff. That enables more control. I think having a single monolithic entity like this removes controls, and I think that is one of the problems they have. And I think it's one of the things they need to address, to break Police Scotland into, if not back to say 8 forces, but certainly the likes of Edinburgh and Glasgow need to have their own force. Maybe I would suggest Aberdeen would have a larger force. So you'd have sort of Aberdeen would cover the Aberdeen and that larger area there, the Peterhead round the corner, all the way down maybe to Dundee, and it could be a large area, and then the other side you could have something based, say, Inverness and the rest of the top, things like that. You could probably break it into 4 or 5 regional forces, and that would put more control. That would put more senior bods closer to the bottom. But it would also, and this is the important thing, it would also mean that there was fewer opportunities for political oversight to wheedle its way in, because it only takes one man. I'm not saying that this man is particularly, susceptible to it. I'm not saying that Iain Livingston has happened to him. But if he is in complete charge, it would only take one conversation with one chief constable, and the police are sent in a different direction. If you had 5 or 6 chief constables, you would have to have the 5 or 6 conversations and make sure all 5 or 6 were in agreement if you're going to corrupt the police. And I think that was something that also needs to be addressed, you know. But anyway, getting back into this because it was particular about the Sheku Bayoh story. So Mr. Livingston also sent a personal message to the family of Sheku Bayoh, the 31-year-old who died in police custody in 2015, having been arrested on a street in Kirkcaldy. His death is the subject of a public inquiry, and Mr. Livingston addressed the fatality directly. He said, "A candid, clear assessment of institutional discrimination means recognising our absolute duty to provide just and effective policing for all, according to their specific needs and circumstances." He said it also requires identifying and removing the deep-rooted barriers to achieving this. There are necessary steps to progress the commitment that Police Scotland will be anti-racist, a personal commitment that I made to my fellow citizens at the commencement of the public inquiry into the death of Sheku Bayoh. And as a commitment to the people of Scotland, it is also a commitment to Sheku Bayoh's family and loved ones. And then he goes on about the onus being on the police to improve. And he's quite right. He's absolutely right. And this whole incident came with the death of that man. And that's when it all came out about how awful the police are. And it's not just at the very sort of the pointy end of policing. It's all the way up. It's up to senior officers who never walk a beat. There's a lot of this. There's a lot of assumptions made. And all of it is entirely wrong. So he's right to address it. And he's also right to go because he's an awful chief constable. For, it's a perversion of justice, the way he's handled this case. Not arresting them, not doing the right things at the right time. Ultimately, his fault. He must, take the blame. There's no buck passing when the buck stops at the top. Anyway, I shall round up and come up. So, there's no seriously big revelation there, is there? We all suspected and knew exactly what the police are like. We've always known what the police are like. But for him to come out and admit it as his last thing, more or less, before he retires, I think that's fine. Just go out. You've said your piece. You've done it. You've looked virtuous. You've looked wonderful. Now take your huge pension and bugger off, and let's never hear from you again. And this would be a perfect time, I think, for Hamza Yousaf to show a bit of proper leadership and to say, actually, we need more than one police force in Scotland and break it up and maybe at 4 or 5. You don't need a huge number, but 4 or 5, just to show the openness and transparency which he keeps going on about, and just to remove any possibility that he could put political pressure on the one Chief Constable Scotland has and completely derail the entire police force and indeed the justice system. So anyway, I'll round off there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, please share the video. Definitely leave a like though. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't get arrested, and goodbye.